Hello everyone, welcome to Historically Accurate. In 210 BC, a huge caravan stopped at the Shaqiu Palace. The caravan was originally supposed to go to Xianyang, but somehow it stopped for a while. The master of the caravan was Qin Shi Huang, Yin Zheng. The reason why the caravan stopped was very simple. Qin Shi Huang had died of illness. His closest minister Zhao Gao and Chancellor Li Si forged his testamentary edict and supported the 18th prince Hu Hai to succeed him, while the emperor's eldest son Fu Su, who was very capable and was supposed to succeed to the throne, was ordered to commit suicide. After succeeding to the throne, Hu Hai indulged in the super luxurious life and was extremely cruel. He colluded with Zhao Gao to kill all his brothers and sisters. Later, Hu Hai and Zhao Gao also killed Li Si and his whole family. Just 3 years later, the country became chaotic. The Qin dynasty was soon put to an end by rebel armies everywhere. At that time, it had been only 14 years since Qin Shi Huang conquered the other 6 states and unified China. China's first centralized and unified dynasty also became the shortest-lived dynasty. So how did the invincible Qin dynasty collapse within 14 years? Let's take a look at what Yin Zheng did after the unification. First of all, Qin Shi Huang felt that the title of king could no longer reflect his great achievements, so he created a tailor-made title for himself, Huangdi. In the past, there were San Huang Wu Di, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. He combined the Huang and Di and created this exclusive title of Huangdi. Since he was the first emperor, he was called Shi Huangdi, the first emperor, or Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin. He also used this word Zhen instead of I to call himself, and stipulated that only the emperor could call himself that way. As you can see, he became arrogant after conquering the other 6 states. Second, he extended the original commandery and county system of Qin to the entire empire. The entire empire was divided into 36 commanderies, later increased to 46. The chief administrative officer of a commandery was called commandery administrator. Each commandery was divided into several counties, and the head officer of a county was a county magistrate. The officials of the various departments of the central government were led by the chancellor, who was in charge of government affairs. The imperial counselor, who supervised officials at all levels, and the supreme commander, who was in charge of the military. This government structure or similar structure has been adopted by later generations ever since. Third, Qin Shi Huang also standardized the Chinese script, the currency, the weights and measures, and the length of the axles of cards. During the Warring States period, different states used different scripts, currencies, weights and measures, and carriages of different sizes. The standardization facilitated economic and cultural exchanges throughout the country and helped eliminate the influence of separatist forces. It also laid the foundation for the integration of such a huge empire. After the empire was established, Qin Shi Huang commanded a large number of laborers to repair and build the Great Wall in response to the threat from the Huns. At the same time, he also sent more than 700,000 prisoners and soldiers to build mausoleum and palace for himself. The constructions of the Great Wall, the mausoleum, and the palace were all huge projects. If they were carried out at the same time, it would definitely consume a significant amount of labor and materials, and cause a lot of casualties. However, Qin Shi Huang still decided to carry out all 3 projects at the same time. The use of a large amount of labor for many years greatly damaged the national power of the Qing Empire. Among these huge projects, the mausoleum and the palace had absolutely no economic benefit. Although the Great Wall was very practical, please check out my video about the Great Wall. Its economic benefits could only be reflected over time. National power being consumed on projects with no economic benefits was one of the main reasons for the collapse of the Qing Empire. In addition to extensive constructions, Qin Shi Huang also aggressively expanded his territory. He ordered the generals Tu Sui and Zhao Tuo to lead 500,000 soldiers and civilians to occupy Lingnan. After the Qin dynasty collapsed, Zhao Tuo even established a kingdom of his own, which stayed independent until the Han dynasty was established. Qin Shi Huang also ordered Meng Tian to lead an army of 300,000 to attack the Huns in the north, seizing a large area of land and preventing the Huns from harassing the border for quite a long time. The Qin dynasty was a country governed by the Qin law code. This sounds pretty good, but in fact, the laws of the Qin dynasty were all very harsh, inhumane, and completely different from the modern legal systems. Ordinary people could easily break the law, become criminals, and then be required to perform hard labor. Such harsh laws ended up being a direct trigger for the collapse of the empire. Here's what happened. In 209 BC, hundreds of civilians were sent to garrison the north. However, they were caught in several days of torrential rain on their way, which prevented them from continuing traveling. By the time the rain stopped, they found that they had missed their scheduled arrival date. According to the laws of the Qin dynasty, a person would be sentenced to death for missing the scheduled date. So two of the civilians, Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, said to the rest, "We will be killed even if we make it to our destination. We would rather rebel to fight for a chance of survival. Are kings and nobilities necessarily superior to us?" From then on, anti-Qin uprisings started all over the country and eventually overthrew the Qin dynasty. However, the harsh laws could only govern ordinary people. In the court, there would always be some people who had different ideas. Some Confucian scholars and alchemists proposed the restoration of the system of enfeoffment as it was in line with the Confucian requirements of etiquette at that time. But this was completely contrary to the empire that Qin Shi Huang had in mind. In order to prohibit these Confucian scholars from discussing government affairs again, Qin Shi Huang ordered the burial alive of more than 460 Confucian scholars and alchemists, and burned a large number of ancient books that were of no use to the Qin dynasty. Only some technical books related to medicine, agriculture, and animal husbandry were preserved. Many classic Asian books have been lost ever since, which can be regarded as a great loss to Chinese civilization. Qin Shi Huang gradually made the country what he wanted it to be, so he became more and more proud, and also began to shift his focus from government affairs to other stuff. And a person who is proud to the extreme always wants to live forever. Obsessed with alchemy and looking for ways to live forever, Qin Shi Huang repeatedly sent alchemists out to sea in ships to search for the islands where the immortals lived on, hoping to find the immortals who could help him live forever. Among those alchemists, Xu Fu was the most famous one. Qin Shi Huang ordered Xu Fu to lead 3,000 boys and girls out to sea in search of celestial mountains. Of course, there was no way that the celestial mountains could be found. Xu Fu and the 3,000 boys and girls were also nowhere to be found. Legend has it that Xu Fu sailed east to ancient Japan. They merged with the indigenous people of Japan and became the ancestors of the Japanese. In addition to looking for ways to live forever, Qin Shi Huang also loved to travel around his country. To facilitate his travel, he also built Chidao, which you can think of as imperial highways. He traveled 5 times in his life, but on the way back to the capital from his last trip, he died of illness at the Shaqiu Palace. I have mentioned what happened next at the beginning of this episode. The invincible Qin dynasty was overthrown by rebel armies only 3 years after the death of Qin Shi Huang. As I mentioned before, the combat effectiveness of the Qin army was exceptionally high. However, after the unification, Qin Shi Huang didn't allow his people to rest and recuperate. Instead, he commanded a large number of laborers to build the Great Wall, the mausoleum, and the palace. A lot of people died either at the place where they were performing hard labor or on the way to the place requesting their hard labor, which dealt a serious blow to the manpower resources of the Qin army. The previous exceptionally high combat effectiveness of the Qin army was motivated by rewards based on military achievements. However, after the other 6 states were defeated, there were no new rewards to keep the Qin army's morale high. Of course, the combat effectiveness would also be greatly reduced. Therefore, the mode of relying on constant plunder to maintain high combat effectiveness is doomed not to last long. Unfortunately, more than 2,000 years later, there were these 2 people who were completely unaware of this and wanted to make a fortune by plundering other countries, and in the end, they inevitably failed. In addition, it was difficult for the ordinary people, especially those who were originally from the other 6 states, to accept the harsh laws and punishments imposed by the 2 emperors of the Qin dynasty. After the other 6 states were defeated, their nobles didn't completely submit to Qin Shi Huang. As the saying goes, the people have been suffering from Qin for a long time. So when someone rebelled against Qin's rule, they would receive responses from hundreds and thousands of people, be it ordinary people or the downtrodden nobles of the former 6 states, and form a rebel army pretty quickly. In fact, the last main force of the Qin army was defeated by the rebel army led by Xiang Yu and his uncle Xiang Liang. Do you still remember Xiang Yan, who was defeated by Wang Jian? Xiang Liang was the son of Xiang Yan, and Xiang Yu was the grandson of Xiang Yan. Although the Qin dynasty was soon destroyed, its impact on Chinese civilization is immeasurable. The unified, centralized country established by Qin Shi Huang became the blueprint for the rulers of later generations to build their countries. While the system established by Qin Shi Huang was conducive to building a strong country, the way he implemented it made ordinary people living in his time miserable. Therefore, even the demise of the Qin dynasty was like a constant alarm bell, warning the rulers of later generations. If you rule a country where people can't survive, you will be overthrown. And the sentence said by Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, "Are kings and nobilities necessarily superior to us?" also told the people of later generations, if your emperor makes your life miserable, then grab your sickle and hoe and rebel. Well, the Qin Shi Huang series is complete as of today. Due to my limitations, there must be some omissions in this series. You can point them out, but I won't listen. I'm just kidding. I'll be open-minded to your opinions. If there's anything else you guys would like to know, please leave me a comment as well. I'll see you next time.